legislative reform to end unconstitutional spying on Americans who haven't been accused of any crimes. If you don't know us, Credo is a national mobile phone carrier based in San Francisco. We have customers in every state, and each year we give a portion of our revenue away to nonprofits, including civil liberties groups. Since we were founded, we've given away over $78 million to organizations that are fighting for social change. Unlike other telecoms who invest hundreds of millions of dollars in lobbying and political donations, we also act as an activism group. We organize millions of US citizens to take action. Credo's 3.5 million members sign petitions, make phone calls, attend rallies, marches, hearings, they work on elections, and sometimes they even get arrested in peaceful civil disobedience, fighting to defend the Constitution, protect the environment, and win progressive social change. Ending unconstitutional government surveillance on Americans is of enormous importance to us. As a telecom, we're uniquely impacted by laws like the Patriot Act, which could force us to be accomplices to the government as it spies on innocent Americans. There's no way that we as a telecom can protect our customers from this sort of activity without changing laws that protect all Americans. To protect our customers, we have to ensure that all Americans' First and Fourth Amendment rights are protected. To do that, we're counting on our elected officials to stand up for the Constitution, to repeal the Patriot Act, and repeal the 5 Amendments Act. The Surveillance State Repeal Act does just that. It's the only piece of proposed legislation that will. If we're not successful in passing this legislation, it could take us years for the courts to finally declare that the laws that are on the books are unconstitutional. So we need Congress to start working right now on a solution. As a social change organization that runs a telephone company to fund progressive activism and philanthropy, Credo has a unique role in this fight. We have a long history of defending civil liberties and fighting against abuses of power that threaten Americans' constitutional rights to privacy. More than 100,000 Credo members told President Obama to end the NSA's surveillance dragnet. Credo members made nearly 5,000 phone calls in support of the Amash Amendment, which was aimed at halting the indiscriminate dragnet sweeping up of the phone records of Americans. And more than 120,000 Credo activists signed a petition in support of former Representative Rush Holt's Surveillance State Repeal Act. And Credo also supported the Massey-Lofgren Amendment to defund warrantless NSA backdoor searches. We've also joined in the past with groups on the right and on the left to block legislation that purports to be real change but stands in the way of true reform. Legislation that gives the appearance of addressing unconstitutional spying but doesn't address the core issues. For example, Credo opposed Senator Patrick Leahy's most recent Senate version of the USA Freedom Act, which would have effectively reauthorized the Patriot Act without fixing the worst constitutional abuses by the NSA. Credo also opposed Senator Feinstein's FISA Improvements Act, which would have codified the NSA's unconstitutional program of surveillance by bulk collection. And while we fight for full repeal of the laws that allow for unconstitutional spying, we strongly believe there should be as much transparency as possible regarding government surveillance, and that our customers have the right to know when government entities request access for their information or communications. That's why in 2013, we set an industry standard by becoming the first telecom company to release a transparency report detailing the number of government requests to Credo for customer information and the content of customer communications that are not subject to legal order not to disclose. Since then, we've released those reports quarterly. And over the years, we've donated more than $2 million to groups like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Center for Constitutional Rights, the ACLU, Fight for the Future and Demand Progress, which are fighting to reform the NSA and stop mass surveillance. This is not a partisan issue. It's a constitutional issue. The Bush administration pushed for the Patriot Act and FISA Amendments Act, and then the Bush administration doubled down on the Bush administration's abuses to authorize and reauthorize government spying and to use the state secrets privilege to slow review by the courts. With some of the worst provisions of the Patriot Act up for reauthorization this year, like Patrick mentioned, it's certain that the Obama administration will put overwhelming pressure on members of Congress to vote for reauthorization. And it's highly likely that part of the bad deal the administration and its allies push will include some flimsy, superficial reforms that will do nothing to protect our constitutional rights. The Surveillance State Repeal Act lays down a marker for what real reform will look like. It gives us an opportunity to get members of Congress on the record either supporting real reform or alternately siding with the intelligence community against the rights of the American public. This is the litmus test that we need. At the end of the day, the crisis we're facing isn't even about the laws that are on the books. One thing that we've learned from Edward Snowden's brave decision to reveal the full scope of government spying is that even the few laws that are intended to restrain the intelligence community are often and routinely violated. Since Snowden spoke out, Congress hasn't passed any legislation to address mass surveillance, and no high-ranking members of the intelligence community have been publicly held accountable or prosecuted. That has to change. Congress must reassert its role in checking executive power, in overseeing America's secret intelligence agencies, and protecting Americans from unconstitutional mass surveillance. Even if we pass this bill, more will need to be done. Members of the intelligence community that broke the law must be fired and prosecuted. Congress should defund illegal mass surveillance programs and exercise greater oversight of the intelligence community's budget. And Congress should implement structural reforms that allow every member of Congress to participate in overseeing secret intelligence, not just a select few members who sit on key committees because they've proven to party leadership that they won't rock the boat. Passing the Surveillance State Repeal Act would be an enormous step in the right direction that would signal a dramatic shift towards oversight and accountability. So members of Congress should expect to be hearing an awful lot about it from Credo members in the near future. Thank you.